Good day. You're welcome once again to Relationship Insights and Knowledge Sharing with the Queen on the Balanced Me Show, where we talk everything relationship. And we believe that every relationship can work and life very, very easy once the knowledge gap, is bridged with the parties involved willing and intentional in all their dealings. So that's what we look at on relationship insights and knowledge sharing with the Queen. And today I'm just so happy the person I have in the house. I have Amina Yunus Ali, a dear sister of mine. And I'll just, tell you just a little bit about her. Um, Amina happens to be a certified performance consultant and a master practitioner of neuro-linguistic programming. She's also an associate practitioner with the Institute of Family Systems Engineering and Development and a certified mediator who specializes in family mediation. And she's also an intermediate level practitioner of tapping meditation and with tapping solutions for meditative and reflective healing techniques. She's also a parenting coach. I hope I'm correct, Amina.
Yeah.
Yes. And it's on that we're looking at the topic we have today is hinged on that part of her being a parent coach, and her coaching firm Timeless Soul Incorporated is specially designed to help teenagers and their families appreciate the unique beauty of puberty with while navigating the terrain into adulthood with several therapeutic programs such as teens transition therapy and value integration program. So we are hinging our conversation on this part of her today, being a parent, teen, teen coach. And today we are really looking at this topic, the parent-teen relationship. And Amina, what I want you to do for us is to just talk as much as you would love us to know about this particular relationship. So when we are talking about parent-teen relationship, what exactly do we mean? Who is a teenager? Who is a parent? Just, let us into this, your world, that you have chosen to
Okay, all
sit on.
right. I hope my voice sustains me because I have a lot to say, but time and energy, of course, are something of a consideration. So, parent-child relationship, just like you said, I think the most appropriate way to begin is first, thank you very much for inviting me to your show. It's lovely to be here. I really appreciate it. And so, I'm going to shoot up by starting with the definition of a teenager. So, ideally, when we talk about teenagers, we talk about children between 13 to 19 years of age. But when we are looking at it in the context of who a teenager is, as opposed to what a teenager is, who a teenager is actually starts from the moment where their biological experiences begin to shape their expectations of the world, their expectations of their interactions with their families and things like that. So you could find, so in that sense, we now define that person as an adolescent. So an adolescent actually begins biologically and psychologically from the moment a teenagers, from the moment the expectation of the young person begins to change from total dependence on the caregivers to that moment where they begin to demand independence. So we're looking at adolescents from the age of 12 who begins to tell you, oh no, I can do this on my own, I can make a decision on my own, to the adolescent who is perhaps 19, 20, also is recognizing that so the world out there is so big for me. I do not have to navigate it on my own. I can rely on my friends, and he begins to restructure that mentality of dependence into interdependence. So that channel, that period is often tumultuous for a lot of parents in that as much as we celebrate birthdays, milestones, and graduations and stuff like that, we still struggle with noticing those things that are behind the scenes, the psychology, the biology. We struggle to understand how sometimes an adolescent can do certain things so well, almost perfectly like an adult, and another minute he or she is struggling like a child. And we are like,
Yeah.
how dare you? How could you? Why should you? Because in and of ourselves, we're expecting them to have the ability to make certain decisions based on what they tell us or based on how they show up in certain instances. But then we are also treating them like children because of certain decisions that they make, which of course is also a part of their growing up. But
Yeah.
we feel like, oh, you are not old enough to handle this. Things like alcohol, for instance, things like going to parties, for instance, things like even sex and sexuality, for instance, we still feel like there are certain barriers and boundaries that we need to put in place. And very much so, we need to, that would keep our teenagers or our adolescents safe and secure. Now, what do parents need to know about adolescents? I think one of the first things that we need to address as parents is what is the culture of adolescence in our family? So, in the olden days, so I'm a Yoruba girl, basically from Djibouti, right? But then I have ancestors in Ilori, I have ancestors in the north, and and my grandparents, my father himself also traveled a lot to the east, and some of the experiences that they come back home to share with us shows that there is a rites of passage when a child gets old enough to be able to learn certain things. As a matter of fact, if you look at each of our ancestry, regardless of where you come from, you will notice that the moment a child becomes a teenager, he begins to be enveloped in a circle of older people where he learns the culture, he learns the vision, he learns the tribe where he comes from. But of course, global civilization has shown us that we don't have time. So the only thing we perhaps do is celebrate birthdays, my sweet 16 or my elegant 18 and things like that. We do not take time to prepare our children for the culture of adolescence, for the culture of becoming young adults. And this is where, of course, the knowledge gap between recognizing who your child is and who your child is becoming begins to grow. And this is where my job comes in because my job as a teen transition therapist is actually to help teenagers identify what the culture is, personal culture, family culture, social culture, because all this contributes to who they eventually become. Certain cultures, for instance, in Nigeria, you cannot drive until the age of 21, but in the US, you can drive from the age of 16. So imagine a Nigerian who lives in the US, and then the family is insistent that until you get to the age of 21, you don't get to have a car, you can't drive. That conflicts with the knowledge base that that child has because he already assumed that my colleagues, my peers, my friends already have a car. So there is a conflict and there is a need to demand at that point in time. So this is where sometimes conflict comes from. So also in the Yoruba culture, we know that there are certain things that is expected of a young girl who is becoming mature. Like, oh, so this is the time they begin to psychologically prepare you for motherhood. So whoever has a baby in the house, you begin to be the calling babysitter at any moment in time. This happens if you are based here in Nigeria or you are based here in the African setting in Adokutap. But if you are abroad, that doesn't apply. So the mix of cultures, the exposure that our children has already confuses them on and of itself. But what parents can do and should begin to do is to begin to address what is our own personal culture, right? What is the culture in our family? And then what are the rites of passage that we need to begin to institute? I remember when, and please stop it because I can go on and on about this. Stop me when there's another question answers. No problem. Yeah. So I know when I turned I think 14 or 15 and my first menstruation, at that time, my mom had never had any discussion with me about menstruation or anything. Of course, as a Muslim, I would know that my siblings, my female siblings, would miss will miss their Muslim prayer at certain points in time because they are not allowed to pray when they are having their menstruation. So, I didn't think anything of it. In fact, I remember, I think there were times I would intentionally tell my mom that I'm not praying today, just like my siblings were. And she was like, what do you mean? Have you started? But I didn't get it. So I was in SS1, SS2, I can't really recall properly now. And then these people came, they were making, and this is not about for always, but they came to distribute sanitary towels in the secondary school. And they came to educate us about reproductive system. And actually, it was one of the things that got me interested about female reproductive systems and teenage years and helping teenagers navigate this storm. So, I always thought that, when that happened, that I would have had that discussion with my mom, but it never happened. I had it in school. So when it eventually happened, and I just told my mom, and she was like, hey, Obiri today, meaning you're now a woman. Right? So it was a shock for her. And I was like, excuse me. I mean, when I was in Jasper JS2, I had friends who were already who were already menstruating. So how come this is a shock for you? And this was the time she now wanted to start to tell me things that I already know that even I could school her on. But of course, being a respectful daughter, then all I just did was listen and allow her. So, now look at the myriad of information that is out there at the click of a button. I didn't have to contend with that. All I had to contend with were responsible adults. People I had in my life at that age were responsible adults who were concerned about, health, hygiene, and sexuality, right? But now these days we have a myriad of information on the excuse me, on the internet for children to just, with a click of a button, you will get this information. Whether it is true, whether it is right or not, they get the information, they assimilate it, and then begin to act upon. And then we as parents are concerned and worried about these are things that we're having to deal with. The truth is, we haven't progressed technologically and psychologically the way our teenagers have progressed. And this is also another point where the knowledge gap begins to show up. So you want to begin to have a constant, convenient connected conversation rather, constant connected conversation with your child. Not don't wait till they are telling you that they're a teenager now, right? You want to have a constant connected conversation with them where they are able to tell you, where you begin to actually notice who they are, their personality, their love language, because these are the things that will help you key in to their person, and then you begin to tailor them towards the culture you want them to live. So they are not confused by the culture of the world, because the truth is there's a kaleidoscope of cultures out there. So people are just picking what is convenient and what is comfortable for them. So what question you want to ask us, one of the questions you want to ask yourself is, what do my family represent, and how can I engage my children on that path?
Yeah. Thank you so much, Amina. You said something very important, that it's key we have conversations with our children. And I would like to say that this conversation needs to start since they are born. So you're not waiting for a particular age. Let the conversation, start even from the womb. I was having a conversation with our daughter who is 10 going on 11, and she's working on a particular project and was asking me some questions that, oh mom, is it true that when you have the fetus in the tummy, the child, it can recognize the voice of the mom, and I said yes, can see light. I said yes, If you put the torchlight towards the tummy and you put it in a particular direction, when the child, the fetus sees, the light moves in that direction. So just to buttress the fact that it's important, since when they are in the womb, we begin to have these conversations. And when they are here, we continue to have these conversations. And the truth is, a child will always be a child. A child will always ask questions. We'll always ask questions, and we shouldn't shut them up. Because when we shut them up, trust me, they won't come back again. We have three children, and we found out that the way we raised the first two, thank God for understanding now. Thank God for light. Thank God for knowledge. We found out by the time we're exposed to this new way, we found out that we didn't really do a good job with them. Because there were times they want to ask us some questions, we just shut them up. Oh, I'm busy, I'm da 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 da. And
You say
the
you're not good enough to understand.
absolutely. And the
Mm.
way they grew up and the way the younger sister of theirs grew up, is totally different. She can ask, now we've been able to work on it and, rectify things. But the questions she is asking on us now, they were not able to ask us when they were her age, So
Mm.
it's amazing, this issue of having conversations with them from the womb such that it's easy for the two of the parents and the children to connect. And when they have questions, when they have things that is not clear to them, they can easily share with us. They can easily share, ask us questions, knowing that they are safe. Because that's another thing, and that's what I want you to speak with. How can we? Yes, we've talked about conversations, having conversations with them, communicating with them. What other things can we do with our children that will make them feel safe? With us and make them, feel I can always speak to mom, I can always speak to dad because I know, they will listen to me.
Okay, well, I think that's a four-tier question itself. So I'm going to start with tier one. And the first is being seen, right? Being seen comes from understanding that this child of mine is his own individual. This child came through me. This is a gift from God. This child is someone who has, as much as I'm going to impact their and influence their life channel, I'm, they're also going to be able to define what that life channel is for them or to them and how they're going to navigate it. So being seen as an individual, not a replica of, not a substitute of, not a replacement of, not a subordinate of you, but a person. So seeing your child, looking at your child from the space of, you know, who are you? How do I get to know you better? How do I connect with you? That is the first bond that parents and children should first begin to engage in. That will help them, you know, that will help that child feel safe. Because if you come from a position of curiosity rather than a definitive position of um, judgment or instruction, then you would be able to connect better. Judgment and instruction informs that you believe that everything that you are going to give to this child is absolute, right? That child cannot have his or her own mind, cannot define his or her own mind or anything. But I mean, we are constantly seeing that the battle now is the battle of control for most parents, and they are losing every day. The more you try to control, the more you lose that child. So you first have to see that child. You would notice that as much as even twins are identical, there will be differences that will tell one apart from the other. So also your child, no matter how much that child looks like you or grows up under you, that child will have a unique way of thinking about things, of responding to things, of representing things. And that is where you need to begin to respect. The second part is being able to soothe. And this comes with a lot of um, psychological maturity, which I dare say most parents do not have, especially those of us who are still battling with one unresolved trauma. cost of the other. The ability to soothe comes with the ability to emotion coach. That means that whatever this child does, I'm not going to take it personal. I can't course correct. I can't help he or she navigate that challenge, but I am not going to take it personal that you did this to me. A child comes home after having an unwanted pregnancy and you believe that it is about you. It is not about you. The child has made a mistake. You can help that child redirect his or her life. This child has been exposed to some things that you don't want them exposed to. You can redirect, but you have to do that mindfully, away from your own trauma, away from whatever you believe your generational cause is or your generational blessing is, right? So the ability to soothe says that you recognize how important this person is and how you can help them go through life without making it about you, the parent.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that is one thing, and that is one thing that is a very key thing that builds safety after being able to see the children. Then the third one, of course, is the ability to provide security. Now, safety and security are often misused in such a way that you believe that when you're providing what you're providing the other. Security says um, you're safe, you're safe in within around me. You're safe from whatever harm that could come to you from outside. I'm going to protect you from that. Safety, which is what you're asking me about, and it is hinge of this the other thing, talks about you're safe from my own demons, right? I am not going to make you me because I believe I am perfect, but rather I'm going to try to bring you to yourself in the most amazing ways possible. So, a lot of parents struggle with this because we are so cool at providing safety and providing security in terms of shielding our children from unwanted harms, shielding them from things that are out there. But one of the things that we can't shield them and we shouldn't shield them from is making mistakes. So part of providing security is the ability to walk through mistakes, to walk through failure. So in this day and age, you're having parents who would rather have their children have perfect scores on their SATs or their WAEC exams, but would never stomach them maybe making a mistake in a choice, a choice of career, for instance, because we are so afraid of them finding themselves. So now we have children or young adults who are totally lost, who have no idea who they are beyond the shadow of their parents, who believe that money will solve every problem because that's what they've always seen, and who believe that security only comes from their parents and not their ability to be resilient. So they can't even go through adversity or tough times without feeling like their entire world has crashed. So part of providing security from outside forces is also building resilience, helping your child to go through adversity, to go through failure, to go through mistakes lovingly. Of course, you're going to be there for them lovingly, you're going to be there connectedly, but you have to sit with them in that dark and then help them walk towards the light on their own. That is what security means. Now, safety, which is what you've asked me, is, and I'm going to say this as much as I can, is walking through your own shit and just getting it done with before you become a parent. But if you haven't done that, begin to do it now, right? Like you can't just parent from a place of fear and unresolved issues. You can't afford to, because these are the things that informs and impact their lives at the end of the day. Right? These are the things that they will come back to you and then you're unable to answer for because you've made a lot of mess for your own life. And then you're afraid that they're going to make the same mistakes and you're overprotective or even underprotective in some cases like that I have seen. So you want to be sure that you are wholesome, wholehearted, not perfect, right? But you are walking in a space of like, whatever this world is going to be, whatever life is going to bring to us, it's not going to be a reflection of my past, but it's going to be me connected to the present and working towards my future with my family as a wholesome person, not a broken person, right?
Wow.
So this is what actually convinces children that they are safe. Children can smell a liar from a mile ahead. So if you are lying through your trauma, if you are lying through what you've been through in the past and you've not resolved it, they can tell. Because
Hmm.
so there will be conflict in your thoughts, your words, and your actions. There will be
Actions.
conflict in the way you present issues to them. One minute it is okay, another minute it is not
It's not
okay.
okay.
There will be sibling rivalry that you are unable to solve, all because you do not have your own self sorted. You are thinking that, oh, this child is a representative of my husband, especially from children from with children who have their parents are not together, whether they're separated. Like you want to co-parent healthily. You don't want to co-parent because
Absolutely.
I'm thinking like, oh, you're going to make that child a trophy from your
Hmm.
broken marriage.
Hmm.
This just messes them up the more. Like, oh, I'm
Absolutely.
going to show this spouse that without him or without her, I parented this child and I parented him or her well. Your children are not trophies. They are not.
Hmm.
So this just messes them up a lot more. And this is something that, you know, doesn't give them any sense of safety, and they'll rather find that safety in
Hmm.
in in drugs. They'll find safety in certain addictions. So many things that are wrong that children are actually running away from because they don't feel it at home.
Yeah. Okay, thank you so much, Amina. You mentioned something very key. We parenting not out of fear. And I find out that quite a number of people, do that. We've made mistakes and we just feel, oh, these children will do the same or they will walk in the same, and we are just so afraid. We are just so afraid. So it is very important that, children, the parents, have this at the back of their mind that they will still make mistakes. And making mistakes does not mean that that's the end of the world. The same thing that happened to us as well. Anyway, we made our mistakes and the world didn't end. We picked, we took learnings from there, and we've become better as a result of the mistakes we've made. So we should always have it at the back of our minds that yes, these children will make their own mistakes, and we need to allow them grow. We need to allow them find themselves, even as they are growing up, as the year keep turning in and turning out. So yes, it's important that we parents not parent our children from fear. We need to do away with fear. We need to heal from whatever it is, because if we still have trauma that we're dealing with, we find out, I like using this word, we find out that we are just bleeding on our children. We'll just keep bleeding on them. We'll just keep bleeding on them. They've done something little, we just escalate. They've made a mistake that is expected of a child of their age, and we are doing
Mm.
as if the whole world is coming to an end. So it is very, very important that we are careful and not parent our children from a place of fear. And that's why it's very key that if there's a need for us to heal from anything, let's sort ourselves out. Let's
And
sort ourselves
like, I'm sorry that I had to cut
please
you
go
off because I
ahead.
wanted to also clarify what trauma is here or what dysfunction is here. So a lot of people would think that, or parents would think that trauma has to do with whether you came from a broken family or maybe you were, you know, sexually abused as a child or something like that. But guess what? The fact that sometimes, even some parents cannot recall their childhood, says a lot about the kind of parenting that they received. Because the most beautiful, joyful, carefree moments of your life are cemented in that age, right? But some parents are unable to even recall because their brain is protecting them from the harm that they received from those moments. So things like, and of course, I'm talking to an African parent who would assume that um, physical abuse, that is beating, and verbal abuse were the norm for
Mm,
African families. So it is
yeah.
okay, right? It is absolutely okay. But guess what? You are also inflicting that injury upon your children right now, and it is not okay. Our
It is.
parents did the best they could based on what they knew, but you know better and you should
Yes.
do better, right? So
Yes.
things like physical abuse and verbal abuse should not be a norm for any kind of family at
Mm,
all.
yeah.
Shouting or making, because you take safety away the moment that child does not feel like he or she is accepted in that family. So a child who is like, and I struggled with this, which was one of the reasons that I had to go back to school to learn about parenting relationships, not just parents and teens, but
Mm,
parenting relationships in and of itself, because I struggled with it. I didn't know that I was struggling with, okay, so I was struggling with postpartum depression after my baby was born, but then I also had some unresolved issues around parenting that I had solved from my
mm,
mom, basically because my mom was a single mother who had seven children to feed. And she was also going through menopause. She was perimenopause by the time she had me. She was going through menopause by the time I was in a teenager. And those three things were not, and in no way easy experiences for a woman to do alone, much
mm,
less of a widow who has, of course, so many other familial obligations and people looking at her. So, there are things that my mom was always shouting. And
mm.
I always, felt like that was the only way. So
To
a
get
child
your
is shouting,
message
I'm
across.
trying to appease you once and you've not listened. The next thing is stop, shout. And, if it hits me when my daughter was 18 years old and I started tapping her like, shut up, don't talk, don't do this. And I'm like, oh, this is not right.
This is not right.
This is not right. I mean, in what world does an 18-month-old baby doesn't cry? In what
Mm,
world? I mean, but for me, I hadn't seen that acceptable in my family. It
mm,
wasn't acceptable for me to cry at any age. It wasn't acceptable for me to yearn for connection. They used to call me a cat because I love to snuggle. That's my love language. I love to snuggle. So, each time I tried to snuggle, I was pushed away. So for me, it was like an anathema to like being a parent. You feed, you clothe, you play. That is it. That is the way a child is supposed to be. So things like words of affirmation or touch, physical touch as a love language were strange as a parental language for me. So I had to learn them
mm,
because I didn't know then that for me, those were my love languages. But now my daughter is needing those love languages and I'm pretending that, they are not right. But what was not right was for me to assume that the way I was parented was the masterpiece or was the master key to parenting. No. I had to recognize that for what it was. My mom, I mean, she's an amazing woman, right? She's in her 70s and I love her so much, but she did the best she could with what she could cope with at that moment in time. But I can now say because that was our experience, I had to adopt it as my own parenting experience and my parenting technology and to parent my daughter that way. That will take safety off the table entirely.
absolutely. Absolutely. Wow. Thank you so much, Amina. So it's important that we check out even our parenting techniques. Is it working? Is it
Yeah.
working? Is it really giving us the results that we desire? It was part of the things that we also had to, look at. Yes, you said our parents did the best, with what they had at that point in time. And, the cane was part of it, the shouting and all. But, we had to say, you know what? It's not working. It's not
Yeah.
working. We need to readjust. We need to make amendments as regards the way, at which we correct. Most of the time, we were not even, we're just punishing the children. We
Yeah.
were not disciplining them. We were not correcting them, as it were. We were just
Yeah.
disciplining them. And most of the time, like you said, it's out of our own pain. So we're inflicting pain on these children, not necessarily for them, but for us. We were in pains and we were inflicting the pains on these children. So those were part of the things that we realized that we needed to do. Sort ourselves out first, and then we can parent these children wholesomely. Because if we are not careful, we'll just replicate another us. And
Yes.
history will not forgive us at this time and age to replicate the same us in this new children. It wouldn't be fair at all. It wouldn't be fair at all. Um, I just want us, as we are, coming to as we're wrapping up, I just want you to just share with us maybe one or two things that you've missed out while you were, speaking, just to wrap up our conversation this afternoon.
Okay, so frequently one of the frequently asked questions that I get is that I'm trying to connect with my child, but he or she is not responding. What do I do? And I think one of the things that parents miss is that sometimes, yeah, I mean, at some point, like you said, you recognize that you've not done well enough and you want to make amends. So we want to immediately, we are expecting that they would immediately see our turnaround, right? And they will fall back into our laps and everything will be all fun. While that could work easily with spouses, it doesn't work with teenagers. It takes a while to build the trust of a teenager, right? It takes a long, it sometimes it's a hurdle that you may not even get the feedback until maybe that teen becomes an adult and he says, "Oh, I trust you, mommy, I love you," right? And it's basically because they are also in a space of hypervigilance. They can easily forget that at some point in time I tried to reach you, but you are not available. And now all of a sudden you are available. It just doesn't sink in. I mean, what if you change again? What if you are not available again? So I'd rather protect myself. So I'd rather build these worlds around me. So what I say to parents in that way is don't give up, right? You keep trying to learn, you keep trying to show up, like until that child sees that truly this is you, right? Now, while you're trying to do that, you also do not want to let go of boundaries. You don't want to parent in such a way that they are because you feel guilty of over something that you've done in the past, you now want to let them loose and have their way all the time. No, you want to ensure that there are boundaries, there are rules. So it's okay for you sometimes to not be liked. It's okay. But the truth is, if you once they recognize why the boundaries are, because boundaries are meant to keep them safe in the first instance. Once they recognize why those boundaries are there, right, they eventually come back to you. It is a human connection. The void that most teenagers have today actually also comes from a lack of boundaries, a lack of value, a lack of connection. So if you can put those three things in place, connection, values, and boundaries, you will be sure that no matter how much you feel they hate you now, they will always come back to you and say, "Oh, mommy, you know what? Thank you for saying no to this. Thank you for, insisting I do this. I'm better off for it. I'm better off for it." And this is something I've seen over and over again happen in my therapy room with parents who are struggling to connect with their children. And by the time because boundaries says I care enough to want to protect you from even yourself. I care enough to want to protect you from even yourself, from making a mistake that you regret for the rest of your life. So as much as I can protect you from all the mistakes, those things that I know that I can prevent in from my wholeheartedness, I will do it. So, that's something that I know has worked over and over again. So if you're struggling to connect with your teenager right now or your adolescent right now, don't give up. Try to speak their love language. Try to understand their personality. Know what matters to them and why it matters. This is not the time for you to TikTok dance with your teenager in a bit of connecting. This is a time for you to pay attention and listen more. Listen to things that are said and listen to the things that, especially the things that are unsaid, and the things that they you don't want to give them advices and instructions. You just want to show them that you are listening, that you're actually hearing them. And that is one of the things that will actually help you connect more.
Thank you so much, Amina. Thank you for, shedding more light. Thank you for, dropping the word
Yeah,
that when
thank
it
you.
comes to connecting with our children and it's looking as if it's far fetched, let's keep showing up. Let's keep showing up. Let's not
Mm,
give up on them. Let's let them know that I won't disappear again like I did some months ago. I'm here.
mm,
I'm here to hear you. I'm here to listen to you. And I think you
yeah.
used that word listening. I'm here to listen to you. Even their spoken words, I'm here
Yeah.
to listen. I'm here to pick those words. And I'm here to be a support system in the season of your life and even beyond, you know. So
Mm.
thank you so much, Amina, for speaking to parent-teen relationship today on our relationship insights and knowledge sharing with the Queen. And I
Yes, it's a
believe
pleasure to be in the presence of the Queen.
thank you so much. Thank you.
Mm,
And I believe that our audience have picked one or two things, and those that would watch again and again will be able to pick, so many nuggets from the things you've shared with us today. Thank you once again for being a
it's a
part of
pleasure, sis.
today's show. Yeah. Thank you, and do have an amazing day ahead.
You too. Bye.
Thank you.